Hey y'all, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Ashley, and this week we are making a delicious cookie that I love to enjoy during the holidays. Sometimes, certain times a year call for a certain kind of cookie, and we are going to make a molasses spice cookie, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a twist. So let's go ahead and make this together. So to get started, I like to go ahead and mix our dry ingredients together. So I'm going to take some all-purpose flour, baking soda, salt, and then the traditional molasses cookie seasonings, which is cloves, cinnamon, and ground ginger. And we'll put this into a large bowl, and I like to give it a little bit of a whisk to combine the ingredients. One reason you combine the dry ingredients ahead of time is because if you put this into the cookie dough mixture without combining it, you might have a pocket of ginger or a pocket of salt, and this just kind of ensures that everything's incorporated as you make your cookie dough. So we'll go ahead and set this aside. And now we will go ahead and cream our cookie mixture. So there's a couple of different ways to blend ingredients, and this is called a creaming method. And so that is taking the fat, which in this case is butter, and sugar, and creaming it together so the sugar is completely coated in fat, and then we'll add the other ingredients. So we're gonna go ahead and start with room temperature butter. We're gonna go ahead and put that room temperature unsalted butter into the mixer. And we do unsalted so we can control our salt content of our cookies. And then we're going to add a lot of brown sugar. So we're adding a lot of brown sugar to this cookie, which is going to cause it to spread when it bakes. So this won't be a light and fluffy tall cookie, it's going to be a spread out chewy cookie, which is delicious. So we're gonna go ahead and add the brown sugar. And then we're going to cream it together on medium speed for about 2 minutes. It'll be nice and light and fluffy when it's finished. Okay, so it's been mixing for about a minute, and I noticed that there's some butter and sugar that's stuck up on the sides that needs to be fully incorporated. So I'm just going to stop the mixer and go ahead and take my spatula and scrape around the bowl to make sure that we have all of the butter and sugar at the bottom of the mixer, and then that way it's all combined together. Don't do this while the mixer is running. It's not good for anything or anyone around. All right, this has been mixing for about 2 minutes, and it's nice and fluffy, and the butter and the sugar is completely incorporated in the bowl. And now we're going to go ahead and add 1 egg. And it can be room temperature or from the refrigerator. When I'm in a rush, sometimes it comes from the refrigerator, but I do like to work with room temperature eggs when I'm working with room temperature butter especially. Okay, that's fully incorporated, and now we're going to add a lot of molasses. And so this is the signature flavor of the molasses cookie. You of course will taste the ginger and the nutmeg and cloves, or actually it's ginger, cinnamon, and cloves in the cookie as well, but this definitely is the signature flavor, and it also keeps it nice and moist, so it's a soft, chewy cookie. And then we'll go ahead and mix until this is fully incorporated. Okay, this is fully incorporated. You can see that the molasses and the sugar and the butter and egg are completely combined. You don't have any components out by themselves in the mixing bowl. And now we're going to take the mixing bowl off of the mixer and fold in the flour. So I have found in my years of cookie making that folding in the flour when making cookies is a secret to making sure that you have a nice, soft cookie. Rather than a lot of gluten development forming. And so that's what I've started doing when I'm making my cookies, is just fold in that flour rather than whip it in the mixer. So we will go ahead and take off any dough that's on the beater. This is just a paddle attachment to a stand mixer that I'm using. And then we'll go ahead and remove it from the mixer. This off. And then I'm going to give it a couple of stirs just to make sure that I get all the bottom pieces. I have an old gal mixer. She's been around for a while, so sometimes she needs a little help scraping from the bottom, but you want to make sure that all of that is incorporated. And then now let's add our dry ingredients. So if you remember, I set this aside in the beginning. This is our dry ingredients with the spices and the leavener of the baking soda and a little bit of salt. And we're just going to dump this into the bowl, and then we're going to carefully fold it until it's fully incorporated. This is when you use just a little bit of elbow grease. At first it'll look like it'll never combine, and then all of a sudden you'll see that it fully combines in the bowl, and we will have a delicious smelling, fully put together batter for our cookies. There's just certain flavors during the time of year that I crave, and in the winter, I just want those warming spices of gingerbread and molasses cookies and pumpkin pie and all of those traditional holiday favorites. I'm definitely making them all in my kitchen this time of year. So I'm just taking the spatula and kind of cutting down the center and folding over and cutting down the center and folding over. And so that is what's going to give us a fully incorporated mixture without causing too much gluten development, which is what we want for a tender cookie. All right, so you can see that this is fully incorporated. There's not any flour in here that hasn't come into the mixture. So that's when we'll stop. Make sure that you stop just when it's incorporated. Don't mix it too much. And now we're going to scoop it out and put it onto a baking sheet. And we're gonna use a little scooper to make sure that we have the right proportion so all the cookies are the same size. Meanwhile, while I'm getting the baking sheet and the parchment, I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven to 375 degrees, and I'll make sure that the rack is in the middle position. Okay, I have my cookie sheet and it's lined with a piece of parchment. And I also have the cookie dough, and I have a 1/2 ounce cookie scoop. So this cookie scoop is going to give us about a tablespoon of dough, and we're actually going to use 2 per cookie. So it's going to be a 1 ounce cookie. If you have a 1 ounce scoop, then that shortcut is for you. But we're gonna take 2 scoops for each cookie. And I also have a glass of water. And so the glass of water is going to be helpful when I pat the cookies down to make sure that they're a little pressed down so they evenly spread out while we're baking. So to get started, we'll go ahead and take 1 scoop of dough, and I'm going to put it into my hand, a 2nd scoop, and then we're just gonna roll it into a ball. It is kind of a sticky dough, so you don't want it in your hands too much. And we'll put it on the baking sheet. Now, you can make larger cookies if you want, but because we're making cream sandwich cookies, that's my little secret I'm gonna walk you through. I like to make them small because a really big molasses cookie with cream in it sounds really good, but it usually leaves you sick to your stomach. So we're just gonna make a little treat to enjoy. And we'll put 2 on the first row. If you remember in the beginning, I mentioned that these cookies spread a lot because of the sugar content. And so I wanna make sure that we have enough room for them to grow without them being on top of each other. It just makes them harder to separate. So we will continue doing this until the sheet pan is finished with all the cookies on it. We're kind of staggering, so 2, 1, I'll do another 2, a 1, and probably 2 more down here. Okay, I'm gonna wet my hands just a little bit, and then I'll press down on top of each of these cookies a tiny bit. You do not want a lot of water on top of these cookies. So it's really just to keep the dough from sticking. And it's going to help give a more even shape to these cookies. These are going to go again in a 375 degree oven, and we're going to bake them for about 6 minutes. They might go up to 8, but I like to check at 6 minutes to make sure that I don't overcook the cookies. There's a lot of sugar in here, so they're very prone to burning, so just kind of keep your eye on them. We'll pop them in for about 6 minutes, and that is for a 1 ounce cookie. If you're making the larger ones, you might go 8 to 10 minutes, but today we're gonna do the small ones, and we're going to cook them or bake them for 6 minutes. The first batch of cookies is baking, and I went ahead and put the second batch together, and it will be ready to go into the oven. Once the first batch is finished, we'll put it on a cooling rack and let them cool completely before we put the cream filling in. That cream filling will totally melt everywhere if we put a hot cookie on it, so we want to make sure that the cookies are at room temperature before we start putting the cream filling in between the cookies. So let's go ahead and make the cream filling while the cookies are baking. So we'll start off with some unsalted butter. And we will put in powdered sugar. So this kind of goes everywhere when you make it, so we're just going to put in a little bit at a time and whip it with the butter, and then we'll start putting the liquid ingredients in, which is just a little bit of milk and a little bit of vanilla. So I have a hand mixer for this. We will mix it in the bowl slowly. You can also use a stand mixer with a whisk attachment. So we'll put this on high speed and we will start to cream it. You can see it's starting to get a little creamy, almost looks like frosting. It's essentially what we're making. The powdered sugar and butter are combined, but we want to make it a little bit creamier, a little bit fluffier, so we're going to add a little bit of liquid. I have a tablespoon of whole milk that will go in, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and that'll give it just a little bit of a vanilla flavor into the cream cookie. This is nice and fluffy. It's not gritty, so that means that the sugar and the butter are totally incorporated. It's nice and smooth, which means the liquid is totally in there. This is going to be great in between the cookies. Let's go check on the cookies that are baking right now. I checked on the cookies and they need a little bit longer. So full disclosure, at 6 minutes, they were still spreading and they weren't fully brown on the bottom. You wanna make sure that they do have a little bit of a brown edge on them, and they are molasses, so it's a little tough to take a peek, but they will start to crack on the top, kind of like a crinkle cookie would. And that's when you know they are close to being finished. So at 6 minutes, they weren't there yet. I went ahead and set the timer for 3 more minutes, and they need about a minute or 2 longer. So we're looking at about a 10 to 11 minute time on these cookies. The cookies have come out of the oven and they have spread like they should, and they look delicious, they smell delicious. So this is what a finished cookie should look like. So you can see that they've spread out. The reason we use the scoop is so they have this nice symmetrical circle for all of them, so they're easy to put together as a cream sandwich. And then you can see the little cracks starting to form. So this is what you're looking for in a finished cookie. We're going to let this cool until it's at about room temperature. Then when these cool, we're going to put together molasses cream sandwiches. The cookies have cooled to room temperature. Now it's time to add the cream filling into the center. I like to go ahead and match up all of the cookies ahead of time. We had a batch of 8, and I went ahead and matched each of them ahead of time. So we have like-shaped cookies with like-shaped cookies. They should all be that way, but there are sometimes a few that are a little smaller or a little bit bigger, and I just like to make sure when I'm making a cream sandwich that they are about the same size. We'll take a offset spatula and take a little bit of the cream, probably about 2 tablespoons or 1.5 tablespoons, and swirl it all over the cookie. You kind of want a little bit of a generous layer, but it is a lot of sugar, so it sounds like a lot is what you want, but sometimes less is more in this, and then you can at least eat the whole thing because it could be a lot of sugar for you. Then you put the second half on, and you're looking at a beautiful molasses cream pie. We'll go ahead and do another one just to show you. So an offset spatula with about 1 tablespoon, 1.5 tablespoons of the mixture, the cream filling mixture. And just swirl it on there. And then we'll put the top on and make a little sandwich. And there you have a perfect size cream pie. Let's go ahead and give it a taste. It has a little bit of crunch on the outside, but it's soft on the inside and spicy with the warming spices. Not spicy hot, spicy like a cinnamon and the molasses and the ginger, and then the cool creamy frosting in the center. It's so good. This is delicious. Thank you all for joining me in my kitchen today as we made a molasses cream sandwich. I really hope you make them throughout the holiday season, share them with friends and family around the table, and let me know how you enjoyed them. Thanks for watching our episode. If you liked today's episode, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We post new content every single week. Until next time, cook great food in your kitchen, share it with those that you love, and we'll see you soon.